Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. My name is Demetrius. This podcast is for fans of Detroit sports and Michigan sports in general, both sides. Despite the shirt I'm wearing, you can be a fan, even if you're one of those guys. Um, Shout out, as always, to the SPE, the super producer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Ward. We hope you enjoy the podcast. If you do, there's ways to let us know. There's ratings, reviews, likes, thumbs ups, subscriptions. Please do that. We enjoy doing it. We hope you enjoy listening to it. Quite frankly, we're going to do it anyway. So today we want to get into. It's generally like a taboo in the podcast world to like tell everybody the exact time you're recording your podcast. I don't know why that is. I think there are times where it's important that people have an idea because something that you say can be incredibly inaccurate if people don't know when you're saying it, right? So with this podcast, heavily focused, and I say heavily focused because I'm going to touch on the Tigers, little March Madness at the end, but heavily focused on Detroit Lion football as this podcast is prone to be. Um, some of the things I'm talking about, free agent signings and such, I'm going to talk about guys who, as I record, aren't signed. So it is Wednesday afternoon. It is Wednesday early evening, and today is the opening of the league year, the 16th of March. So there's a lot of things that were done and said and intended to be done prior to today. But today is what's called the start of the league year. And if you're listening, you're probably a football fan. You probably know all this, but just in case you don't. So I'm going to talk a lot about guys that have signed, guys that haven't signed, guys that could sign, guys that the Lions should potentially be interested in signing. So if you listen to this Wednesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon or Friday, and some guy signed, it'll sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But it is just that I'm recording on Wednesday. So um, for this league, games are a big deal, right? Games matter, particularly the one in February, right? This week is is as exciting and important, I would say. And there's a joke there for Lions fans. We've never won a Super Bowl. This is what we care about. Whatever. It's important. This is about team construction. This is how you build, right? And with the Lions currently in a place of rebuilding, this week is one of the steps, right? One of the mechanisms, one of the ways. And so it's important. Everybody knows when my favorite 3-day period is at the end of April, not just because it's my birthday, but it is the NFL draft, right? But this is a precursor in a sense that what they've done the last couple of days, what they still could do in the next couple of days or even weeks will dictate what they do in the draft. And I've always stated successful teams draft well. People want to have all these conversations. I had a guy friend of mine, Freddie, today tell me I think the Lions are cursed. And I said, Freddie, the Lions aren't cursed. The Lions have had a series of inept general managers slash VP of personnel people. I think that ended a little over a year ago. I am a massive Brad Holmes fan. Everybody knows that. I think this guy really understands how to do this job. And because of that, I continue to say I think we're on the come up, and I think evidence will come. But so I'm going to touch on free agency in the league in general. I'm going to talk specifically about what the Lions have done so far. Maybe a little talk about what they could still do, and then we have to talk about how that's going to impact the draft. I'm going to touch a little bit on what I think the few moves they've done so far, what it means for the draft, because there's some logic, some line of thinking that might suggest that because they did A, then they won't do B. I am not a proponent of that logic. I've heard some of it, and so we'll touch on that. Then I want to end because I listen to sports radio. I listen to sports talk radio. You know that, right? Oftentimes, I rail on a fictitious person called Dumbass Dan. Well, actually, no. There's a real dude named Dan who's a dumbass. Yeah, and so once, I don't know, 2 years ago, whenever it was, he hit Mike and I up on our social segment with a really intensely, insanely dumbass comment. And so I jumped down a rabbit hole, spent the next 15 minutes quantifying why that guy is my worst enemy. I often say I fancy myself the protagonist of this podcast because I don't generally have guests, and so I need an antagonist. And dumbass Dan, the metaphorical dumbass Dan, is my antagonist. And so these are the guys that call in the sports talk radio, particularly in the afternoon. And it's not every caller. There's some really smart people that call in, but there's so many of these dumbass Dans that call in and say really dumb stuff. So the latest narrative that I've been hearing, and it's only slightly irritating, but it's stupid, is that the Tigers are cheap, that Christopher Illich is cheap. He won't spend money to make the team better. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit just because I'm irritated and I can do it. And then I'm going to talk about March Madness. Both teams in the tournament should be interesting. Both have kind of interesting roads to get there, but I want to touch on that a little bit. But this is going to be heavy Lions, heavy free agency draft, heavy, football, because that's generally what it is, right? There'll be times when it'll be 50-50. There may be the occasion where I do something if the Pistons or Tigers do something specifically interesting that we might. But for the most part, cornbread and Kool-Aid will always be baselined on the Lions, right? That's what started it. There was a time for 2 years where it was just Lions. So hopefully that's okay. I know there's a lot of fans out there who like other sports, and I like the Red Wings. I'm not as knowledgeable about the Wings as I'd like to be, so I'm not going to get on the podcast and act like I know everything about the Red Wings or hockey in general. The Lions are my wheelhouse. The Tigers are a passion. The Pistons I love, and obviously go green. So there will be times we will, but not today. So I want to start off with just the craziness of the league in general. This week is one of the reasons. Games are a big deal. Games get high ratings. Now that gambling has worked its way into the sphere, betting on games, fantasy football, daily wagering, the NFL is just a, a money producer. They just print money. They do everything right with respect to the business of football. There's some real a-holes that are owners. There's some coaches, some players, right? Just like in life, it's just a microcosm of the world. But as a business model, there is nothing like the National Football League. And I say that to say they haven't played a game in a month and they dominate the sports landscape. They have dominated the sports landscape probably over a week since last Tuesday when Aaron Rodgers announced, if you want to say that he was going to stay in Green Bay. And that whole drama, I'm not going to do that whole thing. If you're a fan of this podcast, or if you've just listened more than a half dozen times, you know how I feel about Aaron Charles Rodgers. Shout out to Bill Carroll. Um, not a fan, not a fan, but he gets a lot of attention. ESPN has a morning show dedicated to Green Bay and Dallas. Right? They occasionally talk about other people in other sports, but fundamentally that show is the Green Bay Packer Dallas Cowboy morning show. So, I mean, I do like sports. I am interested. I get this information. I think that they are making a run, right? They are still trying to stay there. I am not one who believes they've done enough additional. Like, and somewhere Chris is rolling his eyes. Like, who the hell am I to evaluate how the Packers run their team? That's fine. That's fine. They re-signed Devondre Campbell. They were able to they tagged Devontae, who doesn't want to play on the tag, and that's fine. It's better for their cap if they extend Devontae and spread out his number over years. I think I've explained that before, how contracts are weird. It's about guaranteed money. And for the salary cap, teams play tricks and do things with a contract that allows them to spread it out so it doesn't hit their cap all in one fell swoop, or they can move it around. They can defer money, they can accelerate money into a bonus. There's all kinds of tricks in the NFL salary cap that allows a team like the Packers, who at one point were 30 million over, allows them to re-sign he who shall no longer be named to a 4-year, $200 million extension And as badly as I want to dig into what that really is, I'm not going to. And franchise Devontae, re-signed Devondre Campbell. Now they had to release Darius Smith. I think Rasul Douglas is not going to come back. Maybe. But they had to do some things in that organization. And I don't know if they're better than they were last year. Problem is they were really good last year. They just had 3 plays that cost them a game, right? 3 special teams plays cost them a game. I can be honest about that. I don't know. I don't know. Um, that guy won the MVP again, but you've tied up a lot of money in him and Devontae. I don't know the long-term impact that has on your cap. Now, like I just said, you can manipulate the cap. Teams will figure out a way to make things work. They'll be fine, I'm sure. But the clock is ticking anyway. Number one, because he is getting old. He won't be the MVP every year. And eventually these cap things are going to catch up. And there's a team that's headquartered in Allen Park, Michigan, that is on their way. So I'll leave it at that. We got to talk about Tom Brady unretiring. I don't know, right? I'm not going to tell some joke about he got tired of his kids. I'm sure he loves his kids. I think the guy's a competitor. He might be one of the ultimate competitors sports has ever seen. I think he is someone who loves the game. I think he loves to compete. And more than anything, somewhere he sat down or someone said, "You finished second in the MVP," right? When you talk, people just talk about his age. Fact is, his performance has not deteriorated. Like the game will tell you when you when you have to retire. The game will tell you when it's a wrap. The game's not telling him that. He played very well. He still is under contract to a very good football team. Logically, this doesn't surprise me, right? I didn't feel like his initial retirement was emphatic anyway. But if you are aches and pains guy and you're just like, look, I'm just hurting everywhere. I get it. He eats avocados and strawberries all the time, so he's fine. I have no idea what he eats. Um, he by all accounts likes Tampa as an organization and a city. His performance certainly wasn't screaming, get out of the game, you're too old to play. So that didn't surprise me. It was interesting. It dominated the spotlight for a day or two. I think I think the Russell Wilson trade is important to mention. It's important to mention because now the Broncos are in a good spot because they still have cap space. They can still do more. And you've got to wonder about the AFC West. Like you got to think about the fact that Kansas City is still out there, right? Think of and what the Chargers have done, bringing over Khalil Mack. They've added pieces. That's that division might put 3 teams in the playoffs. And at the risk of insulting someone from Cincinnati or Buffalo, who just signed Von Miller to a 6-year deal, you signed 32-year-old Von Miller to a 6-year deal. I think that's again spreading cap money out. 6 at 120. You can spread the money out that way. I'm sure there are avoidable years or it's an opt out or something like that. Ways to manipulate it. So when you see the numbers 6 120, that's an agent marketing. And it's smart by the agent to say, yeah, because if he were to play all 6 years and get maximum value for the deal, he will get paid $120 million. I would have a hard time believing that Von Miller will still be playing football in 6 years or 5 years, maybe even 3 years. But there's a certain percentage of that that's guaranteed. And they can do that and not kill their cap by spreading it out over longer years. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers in 4 years. You see numbers where guys sign big, long deals. If that guy's over 30, question it. It's probably a salary cap maneuver. Some years are voidable or something on the back end of that. But the AFC West, which I was saying, um, don't want to insult Cincinnati or Buffalo. They might have the 3 best teams in all of football. Certainly, potentially the AFC with Kansas City, Denver, and the Los Angeles Chargers. We're not falling for the banana in the tailpipe, San Diego. That's an interesting division to watch. So that should be interesting. I think the Ravens have had a good week, right? They get Marcus Williams on a 5-year deal for $70 million and Zadarius on a really, really comfortable deal. Marcus Williams and Zadarius Smith from the Packers. both signed with the Ravens, a team that had a good defense already. They bolstered it. Marcus Williams was a guy I really hoped the Lions could get in on. He would have certainly fit a need. He would have been in the system where he had previously worked with both. Who's our DC? Aaron Glenn, and I guess Alex Anzalone was trying but didn't work out. I don't mind what the Raiders did with Chandler Jones. They did have to trade Yannick Ngakwe. I don't know what they traded him to. Oh, the Colts, I think. I think the Colts. Shout out to my friend Mike. Jacksonville was spending money like it was Christmas. They gave Christian Kirk 72 or 84, depending on where you look. They signed the guard, Schreff, I think is how you say his name. And they signed Darius Williams, cornerback. They signed a defensive tackle, a linebacker. Jacksonville had the money and they spent the money. They weren't playing around. And so there's another story that obviously has picked up steam, and that's Deshaun Watson. Almost called him Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Watson. That's probably going to come to a close here pretty soon. And it sounds like the Panthers, the Saints, and initially Cleveland, but now Atlanta has somehow gotten into the conversation. And if I cared about any of those teams, I would break down what it meant. Except I really don't. So I'm not. It's not Detroit, and that's not a conversation I'm interested in having. The cost, they all have the money, not the money, the capital to make it happen, the trade. And I guess I guess it's his choice. I guess they have offers, they being the Houston Texans, have legitimate offers from all four teams. And it's just Deshaun going back to them and saying, this is where I want to go. So that's interesting. He was cleared last Friday. Well, cleared. He was not indicted. That's the right way to say it. You can play semantics with the words, but he was not indicted. So, and the fact that Cleveland's one of the teams that's interested, like on the radar, literally have an offer in front of him, had to have sent a message to Baker Mayfield. So much so that he went to Twitter last night, said goodbye to Cleveland, or whatever it was, the new passive aggressive millennial way to end a relationship, even if it's a working one. So it looks like Baker's days in Cleveland are over. Where does he land? That's interesting. We'll revisit that during like the second wave. We do a mock draft podcast in about 10 days. There'll be a second wave. And the second wave is either big time older guys or really, really talented younger guys. Those are the signings you've seen so far. Those are the numbers you've seen. Marcus Williams is a good example of that, right? Or a big timer like Von Miller signs a deal. So you've seen a lot of guys signing. I didn't really want to talk about Trubisky going to the Steelers, but the SPE is a Bears fan. Probably has thoughts on Trubisky, but we're going to go right past that, Mike. So I think that it's important because there are teams that get evaluated based on who they are in their history. So if Trubisky had signed with the Jets, or God forbid the Lions, that signing probably would have been ridiculed. But because the Steelers, people assume the Steelers know what they're doing. The Steelers have credibility. He's a Steeler. He must be. I don't know. My only visibility was to Trubisky as a Bear under Matt Nagy. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll see. But here's the thing: the second wave, there's a small group of guys around 25 or 26 that are out there looking for the right spot. Big money, but the right spot. And then there's a group of guys 29 to 31, 32, 33 that their names, and their names were big at one point. And now we view them as old. And we view them as these guys can probably still play football. I don't know that any of them are fit for the Lions, but they're interesting names. Like Bobby Wagner, yeah, he's 31. I don't care. I don't think Bobby Wagner is going to pick us. It would be nice to bring Bobby Wagner into our linebacker room, not just because the room is young with Barnes and Anzalone's not young, but you're probably going to add to that room in the draft. Bringing in a Wagner, wow, you immediately upgrade. Tyrann Mathieu, I don't know if he's a fit for our scheme. He's 29. Still a lot of football left in the Honey Badger. I don't know if you like him or not. I don't care. Stephon Gilmore, the corner from the Patriots, at one time considered quite possibly one of the best two or three corners in football. He's 31 now. By all accounts, by the advanced metrics, maybe his game has dropped off. I don't know that it's the right move for us. We got a room full of young corners. It could be. Akeem Hicks is a 32-year-old defensive lineman that's going to help somebody. Clowney, the oft-traveled Jadeveon Clowney, 29. He's out there. Odell's 29. Odell's only 29. The injury thing with Odell for me is tough. Patrick Peterson is only 31 years old. He's out there. If you're talking about corners, right? And then you got this group of guys that are 25, 26, 27 that you're probably going to see. Are they superstars? Are they really good players? What are they? Juju Smith-Schuster's 25 years old. If you need help at receiver, I wonder if we talk to Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know, right? Leighton Vander Esch is 26, linebacker out of Dallas. I like that guy. That's a good inside linebacker. I don't know if we're talking to him. I don't know what he wants. I don't know if he fits our scheme. But it's a corner out of Green Bay. Rasul Douglas, solid corner, could help a team. Will help a team. Another Packer, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The MVS is out there. MVS is 27. So there's some talented players who are still in that back end of their prime, but certainly aren't dropping off the face of the earth. There are some good football players still out there. So there's plenty more signings to be had. I think let's move on and talk about what the Lions did. So there's a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of stuff that's been done. It is an interesting week. It's an exciting week, and there's no shortage of activity. The NFL owns the calendar. There's not really any downtime in the NFL. They went from their Super Bowl to like the Senior Bowl to in the postseason, like bowl games, right into the combine, and guys are putting up ridiculous combine numbers into the beginning of the league year, and now they got pro days, and then we're going to just steamroll right to the draft. We're going to blink and we're going to be at the draft, and then there's going to be mini camp, and then there's going to be OTAs, and then they're going to be back. That's how the NFL does it. Their calendar is flawless. So in terms of the Lions, there's a lot of housekeeping, right? There's stuff you got to do in your own. There's guys who you determined last year fit what you want to do, and you need them back. And I think that I am not objective when it comes to Brad Holmes. In what he has done since he got this job, I am not objective. I don't dislike a single move, even the moves that people criticize. If you really look at them granularly, people want to talk about, the trade for Trinity Benson. I think they gave up a 5th-round pick for Trinity Benson. I'm not criticizing Brad Holmes for taking a shot at a guy with that kind of raw talent, and it didn't work out. The Brashad Perriman move, I respect it because he recognized he was wrong and he corrected it, right? Tyrell Williams was not a bad move. If you are listening to this, if you knew he was going to get a concussion in the first game and not play again all year, then you're just smarter than everybody else. You just are. It's okay. So I love the moves. I like this year re-signing Tracy Walker. I was down on Tracy Walker early, but he started playing really well as the season went on, and you see what that guy's going to be. And they got him for 3 years and $25 million. That's it. 17 guaranteed. That's not just affordable. That's a great contract for the team. It gives Walker a degree of security because 25 million or 17 million is still $17 million. He had a career high in total tackles. He really started to get comfortable in what Dan Campbell's trying to do. And I think that's what you want. Those are the players you want. You want to identify a certain kind of player, both schematically and personality wise. And I think what they figured out was that Tracy Walker was that kind of guy, right? They did release Trey Flowers. Now, I had traditionally been a Trey Flowers guy. When Trey Flowers was on the field, he impacted the game. The reality of the situation is that Trey Flowers wasn't on the field enough. And that's not some flaw in Trey Flowers. That's not some simple mechanical issue with his body. The NFL is a violent game. Guys get hurt. Right? It goes back to the Tyrell Williams thing. That was a great signing when it happened. If Tyrell Williams doesn't get a concussion, he brings an element to this offense that they did not have all year. They would have been a better football team had Tyrell Williams stayed healthy. Tyrell Williams may never play football again. That was a really violent injury. And I don't think people get it. And people criticize the signing as though Brad Holmes should have somehow known Tyrell Williams is going to get a concussion and never play football again. Well, not play again all year. And it's impossible. That's absurd. So releasing Trey Flowers created roughly 10.2, 10.3, of which they promptly went and made another signing of a receiver better than Tyrell Williams. DJ Chark, 25-year-old 6'4 receiver out of Jacksonville, to another prove it deal. Brad Holmes is really, really smart, people. What these deals do, 1 year at 12 or 13, somewhere, depending on where you look, it's basically the Trey Flowers money. And you've got a big body receiver. This is how he's been described: big body speedster on the outside. What do we need more than anything? What is Jared Goff somewhere smiling about? A big body guy defenses have to account for, safeties have to account for, and he's got something to prove. He's coming off an injury. People question his 2020 season where he actually played pretty well. He had 53 catches, over 700 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That is solid numbers, right? Now he comes in on this prove it contract, completely healthy, and he can go out and put up really good numbers. And then next year, he'll be a 26-year-old coming off a really good season, and somebody will give him $18 million. Somebody will give him 5 years and $90 million, because that's what the going rate for a 26-year-old number one receiver will be. That's the opportunity that DJ Chark has in front of him. He knows that. If he does that, that means he played really well. And by extension, Jared Goff probably played really well. And by extension, the offense as a whole was probably very effective. We'll take that. We will give him $13 million to make that happen. Now, you couple that with bringing back Josh Reynolds, who came on strong at a really nice 2 year, $12 million. 2 years and $12 million is solid for what he showed late in the season. And if you get a healthy Cephas back, and if you use pick 32 or 34 on a receiver, now that room looks good because Amon St. Brown is still in that room. That room looks really good now. So I think that the Chark signing was solid. The contract itself, the message it sends, like, we will sign you to a 1 year prove it, and if you do well, we'll come back to you like we did Charles Harris, and we'll give you a little bit more money. So Harris signs 2 years and 14. He's comfortable. He's a Brad Holmes type of guy. Fits the system. Put up career numbers in total tackles and sacks. Can has room to get better in the system. Now you're looking at that room that has Romeo, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, Aiden Hutchinson. Now you got a pass rush. You got a group that can create a pass rush, right? And we know what you got in the middle because we like the additions you've had there. You got to like, all in all, like what they've done so far. I don't say you got to like it. It's smart. It's simple housekeeping. They have not tried to do anything big or splashy yet. There's still time. There's still room. There's still guys. Go get me Bobby Wagner. See how excited I am, right? Go get me Leighton Vander Esch. I wouldn't mind that move, right? So I think they can still do some stuff. These guys may not be the answers, but I believe, like I'll say, everything they've done so far, consistent with the plan Sheila laid out, that cascaded to Brad Holmes, that is cascaded to Dan Campbell. All these moves are just, there's a deliberate plan to what the Lions are doing. I'm not guaranteeing you that plan's going to work. I'm telling you, I love the fact that there's a deliberate plan to what they're doing. These 1 year prove it deals are smart deals. 2 years, $12 million for Josh Reynolds, 2 years, $14 million for Charles Harris. These things allow you to manage your cap, have these solid, effective players. Where you can, you go get the superstar if he's there, right? But you're building this team through the draft. They're building this team through you can see that. They're building this team through the draft. So when the housekeeping, bringing back as Anzalone, Evan Brown was a good rotational lineman, played a number of roles. Bringing back Tim Boyle, even a special teamer like C.J. Moore, a lot of smart little housekeeping deals that they've done so far that make a lot of sense. I'm more impressed with Brad Holmes each day, each transaction, and I have no problem complimenting Sheila Ford Ham, because everything I see is consistent with what she said all along. And there's a degree of obvious trust in Brad Holmes that I believe is warranted, that he's earned, that he deserves. And I think that for the team continuing to build in this way, because we're going to be happy. They got 3 of the top 34, 5 of the top 98. They're going to add some really good football players in the draft. If they were to trade, move around, I think they got some comp picks for the receiver that went to the Giants, Kenny Galladay. I think they got some compensatory picks for that. So these moves are, like I said, they don't they don't really jump off the page and wow you maybe. I think they're really smart moves. I think the money, the way they're spending their money is smart. Even go back just 2 years ago when Bob Quinn dropped a 5-year deal on Vitae. That's not an insult to Vitae. He has slid inside. He's playing he's playing guard very well. But you signed a guy 2 years ago to a 5-year deal with the expectation that you had solved your right tackle problem. And then when you got fired, your replacement promptly spent the 7th pick in the draft on a right tackle. Vitai's a decent player. He's a good player. That contract is horrible. So when I see Brad Holmes continue to sign these really smart contracts that do not limit them from a cap flexibility, contracts that push guys to come out and earn what they are paid, I love it. I love it every time. So let's talk draft. How do these moves impact the draft? So the short answer is not very much, right? I don't see anything that says you can't do whatever you want in the draft. And I'm not going to dig too deep. You know, I'm a draft geek. There's at least 3 draft podcasts coming. I'm going to do one where we look at mocks. Then I'm going to do a pre-draft where I tell you what I think they should do. And then I'm going to do one the day after the draft, that Sunday after the Saturday, to talk about what they actually did. So there's plenty of draft talk coming in the next few weeks. But today, in terms of what do the signings do, signing DJ Chark does not prevent you from drafting a receiver. Not at 32 or 34. And if a Jamison Williams falls down there, if you really like George Pickens, right? I'm not going to do the whole thing, but it does not stop you. The signing of Reynolds doesn't do it. Think about a wide receiver room that has Chark, Reynolds, a pick at 32. Let's say Jamison Williams or George Pickens, just for for fun, and a healthy Quintez Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they resign Khalif. That ain't a bad room, right? That's a nice receiver room. And if that guy you draft at 32 or 34, be it Williams or Pickens, whoever it is, exceeds expectations, if DJ Chark comes out and just completely balls out, you can re-sign him. You could do a number of things. But guess who benefits from all of this? Jared Goff, right? Which I don't really care what people think. I'm a Jared Goff guy. I don't believe we have a quarterback problem right now. I think he's good enough to do what we need our quarterback to do this season. If he plays like he played the back half of last year, yeah, I will engage in a conversation about extending Jared Goff. I will. I don't care. I don't care what people think. I don't care what the dude that calls in on the radio thinks. I don't care what the radio hosts think. If he plays the way he played the last 5 or 6 games, we're going to talk about extending Jared Goff and not drafting a quarterback next year, which won't go over well. The likelihood is that we know what Jared Goff is. We've seen the best of Jared Goff, and it's good. But we will draft a quarterback in next year's draft. Goff can play on the last year of his contract while that guy learns the system, and then Goff can be a 30-year-old who can go sign somewhere and get another good, solid NFL contract. He probably won't complain because, by all accounts, he's a good guy. So I think signing Chark, re-signing Reynolds doesn't stop you from drafting. It can't stop you from drafting a receiver. That was a weakness on the team. You need to continue. Now, anybody who knows me knows I am a fan of the trade down. Like if it's me, that number 2 pick has value. And it's not that I don't like the ends. They're both good. But if somebody is willing to offer me the appropriate value, and that is probably multiple picks in this year's draft, like a 1 and a 2 and a future 1, and you only want me to move back 4, 5, maybe 6 spots, Jets. The Giants wouldn't give up both of those picks. That's a lot. Would Philly be ballsy enough to throw 3 picks at us? Don't know. Would I even drop that far? Right. We're gonna get into all that later because I'm gonna throw trade scenarios in the draft podcast, the whole 9 yards. Trade down to me is the best use of the asset because there's a bunch of players you love. Coming out of this draft, they go, oh, we took Aiden Hudson at 2. I'll be happy. I'll be happy with Thibodeau at 2. I wouldn't be terribly upset with Kyle Hamilton if you think he is a game changer at safety. He is the best player on the board there. Wouldn't be unhappy. Um, if you trade back to 5 or 6 and you pick up another one, a 2 this year and a 1 next year, and you take Jordan Davis, I'll be thrilled, right? Because you're going to add even more players. And this isn't a sprint, it is a marathon. I don't need you to fix everything this April. I don't expect you to somehow win 12 games next year. I don't. I need to see incremental improvement. I need to see you build talent across the roster. And if you get multiple picks, you can draft a linebacker, you can draft a edge rusher, you can draft a defensive lineman, you potentially can get Hamilton or a safety like Stingley. You can maybe get Burks. You can add to the receiver room for sure. Um, Burks is the receiver out of Arkansas. I meant Trayvon Walker. You can get Walker out of Georgia, your defensive lineman. So you can add to multiple areas. So I am a fan of the trade back. But the likelihood is they're going to take whichever edge rusher is there at 2, whether it be Thibodeau or Hudson. And I won't complain because you add an edge rusher to Charles Davis, to a healthy Romeo Okwara, to the guys we have on the inside. You can start to help the back end of your defense by getting to the passer. And I think that there's never anything wrong with that. So we'll get more into drafting and stuff. But I don't all in all, I don't think the signings they've made to date, as we sit here now, truly prevent them from doing anything they want to do in the draft. It really doesn't. I think they're fine. Um, and the draft should be good. I still want them to trade back. Got to be honest. But we'll get more than that. I'm gonna do a mock draft, 2 of them. So one of them we'll do in about 2 weeks, and then we're gonna do a 2.0, maybe 10 days or so before the draft. Then we're gonna do our actual pre-draft podcast where I'm gonna actually predict the first 5 picks, and that did not work out well last year, but that's okay. Won't stop us. So there'll be more pro days and stuff done. So let's talk a bit of Tigers and a little Michigan State before we wrap up. So here's my thing on the Tigers, right? There's there's a narrative floating, and I don't know why people think it, right? Yes, I do. I do. I think there are people who want Christopher Illich as the current owner of the Tigers. They want him to run the team, manage the team like a fantasy baseball roster. And they just say the dumb stuff, the dumbass Dan stuff. He's cheap. He's not spending money. So when he does, they ignore it like it didn't happen, right? And they don't understand that the business of baseball has only a few models. And what you have to do is decide who you are. If you want to be one of those 6 or 7 teams, Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Dodgers, sometimes the Angels, sometimes Texas Rangers, maybe. One of those teams that just says, we're going to go out when somebody good comes up, we're going to go sign them and give them ridiculous money because there's no cap and the luxury tax is not that big a deal to them. You could, and his dad, Christopher's dad, Mike Illich, ran the organization like that for a long time. Go back and see Ivan Rodriguez, Juan Gonzalez, Maglia Ordonez, see Prince Fielder, see Jordan Zimmerman, see all of these big name signings, most of which did not work out. I think Christopher decided to go a different way. I happen to agree with this way. They have put a lot of focus on building through the draft and through their farm system. And there are some really, really talented young baseball players who may not be in Detroit this year, but they're on their way. And then you supplement that. You supplement that by giving Javi Baez 6 years and wait for it, $140 million. That's the definition of spending. That's the definition of spending. You got a proven superstar shortstop, and you give him 6 years and 140 million, completely guaranteed. This guy, and by the way, he knew he needed help in the rotation, so they went and gave Eduardo Rodriguez 5 years and 77 million. It's $217 million on 2 players. In what world are you cheap if you're doing that? And they can still sign other people. There's nothing stopping them. I think there's an intelligent way to do it, and there's a spending spree. The term that's being tossed around a lot now is a drunken sailor way to do it. And the whole thing there is that sailors get drunk and are irresponsible with their money. I've never been a sailor and I don't drink that much, so I don't really know. But there is a smart way to build a professional baseball team. There is, and it takes patience and it takes understanding of the rules of the game, understanding how to build. And you had contracts. You needed to wait. You were still paying Jordan Zimmerman a lot of money. You're still paying Miguel Cabrera a lot of money. So building out your baseball team, there's an easy way to do it. And it doesn't always work. I don't know when the Yankees last won a World Series. Look it up. But there's an intelligent way to do it. And that requires patience. It requires a guy like Christopher Illich to take slings and arrows of people calling him cheap while he's cutting checks for $217 million to two people. Now, I get how sports talk radio works. I get the dumbass Dans that call in. All I'm asking for is do a little diligence. Just look. All you got to do, it's out there. And if you spend $217 million on two players, I don't understand the world where you can then be called cheap because you are still paying Cabrera. And you're going to pay these other guys when it's their time. You're going to pay whether it's Mize or Scooble or Manning or Torkelson or Green. All they're building this farm system of good young players, and I think it's the right way to do it. Now, none of that is to say Tigers are winning the World Series in 2024. Tigers are going to be a good baseball team in 2024. They're going to be a good baseball team in 2023, and they're going to be damned exciting to watch in 2022. Baseball's a different model. And unless you decide you're one of those teams, and I don't know that you can, you have to be patient. And it's like, fine, if you don't like what they're doing, fine. If you don't think Baez is a good player, I'll have that conversation. If you think the last 2 years of that contract are going to be tough, I'll have that conversation. If you don't think Rodriguez was worth $77 million, I'll have that conversation. If you come out and say Christopher Illich is cheap, I question how you form opinions. I question whether you can read articles on the internet. I question if you passed math class. And I can't have that conversation. You don't have to like these guys. You don't have to think they're worth the money they get. To call him cheap and say the Tigers aren't spending, I don't what am I supposed to do with that when there's direct evidence in front of me? I didn't say intelligent spending. I happen to like Baez. I think they're going to do something else. I think they're going to surprise people and still make another splash move. Not just for splash, but a move for a good player who's going to help this baseball team win sooner rather than later. But you got to understand what's happening with Akil Badu. You got to understand they made a really smart move and brought a catcher over from the Reds that's going to help this baseball team, help them learn. You got to understand Torkelson is on his way. Riley Green is on his way. The pitchers, they're doing this the right way. And if you're just too impatient to trust, I guess that's okay. That doesn't make sense to me, but I guess it's okay. But if you're out here saying Christopher Illich is cheap, I don't know if I want to talk to you. I hope you don't even listen to the podcast. That'll make sense. So, all right. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about March Madness, the college basketball tournament, right? The next 3 weeks, we're going to be consumed with this. And both teams are there. And despite my shirt, I don't generally badmouth the other school. They are who they are. I have no problem. If we're not playing them, I have no real issue. They play Thursday, so tomorrow, as of the time I'm recording this podcast, early game, like noon or something, right? And they have Colorado State. Michigan is an 11 seed, Colorado State 6 seed, but by every measure I've seen, Michigan's favorite. Um, they have to look forward to like a 3 seed in Tennessee, possibly Villanova later. Thing about them is I think that they have a player in Hunter Dickinson, and this tournament is right for a player just putting his team on his back and doing special stuff. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying that dude's capable of doing that. Now, I don't know how our conference, we got 9 teams in it, but we crapped the bed last year. Everybody lost except Michigan in the first weekend. I don't think it's going to be the case this year. I think there's going to be 3 teams in the Elite Eight from the Big Ten. And if somebody gets crazy, it could be 4. That's how good I think the league is. I think nationally they sleep on the league because there's depth in the league and in the Big Ten. When I say the league, I mean the Big Ten. It wouldn't surprise me if Purdue, Illinois, and Wisconsin were in the Elite Eight. That wouldn't shock me. Now I haven't looked at the brackets. Hopefully they're not matched up at some point, and that can't happen because somebody's going to hit me on Twitter and tell me I'm an idiot because there's no way they play each other. They can't. Whatever. But Hunter Dickinson can put Michigan on his back and surprise people. Right. I think they're going to win Thursday. I think they're going to beat Colorado State. And after that, I can't sit here and tell you I know what Tennessee is. I can't sit here and tell you that Michigan can't come out, play at the top of their ability and beat Tennessee because I think it could. Yeah, and I think for us, and I say us because it's obvious, right? For us, the Tyson Walker injury is huge, right? And I don't think they did us any favors, but I don't think Tom Izzo cares, right? The fact that we'd have to play Duke and then Gonzaga kind of sucks. But you know what? If Gabe Brown gets hot and Tyson Walker continues to play, and I'm never mad at a freshman. So like Max Christie and those guys, I don't they're freshmen. I don't do that. Those guys were playing high school ball a year ago. Actually, they were done, but the season's longer, the work is harder. The talent level on the Michigan State roster, Marcus Bingham could get really hot and bring something that you see from him, right? They could I watched them play with Purdue, and Purdue is without question one of the top 7, 8 teams. I just don't believe that there's an unbeatable team in college basketball, not even Gonzaga. And if a team can get on a run, and this tournament has produced it, see Danny Manning in '88, see Carmelo, um, see that UCLA team with Tyus Etney. That's the thing that makes this tournament amazing. It's one and done. And if a team gets hot, gets comfortable, and no matter what you say, the one thing the Michigan State Spartans have always been able to do and continue to be able to do is when they get focused on defense and they lock down, they can play with anybody. Now, we just haven't seen it enough for anybody to have a confidence level. That includes me. I hope that we end Mike Krzyzewski's career. Not because I have any special hatred for Mike Krzyzewski. I have a unique and unnatural love for Tom Izzo. And I think that would be an awesome feather in his hat. I don't know. That might be, it might not be. I don't know. I just want them to play well, right? If they play well and Duke plays better, and Duke just has more talent and Duke beats them, and I'm not ignoring Davidson because we've gotten knocked out by Middle Tennessee State and other schools. You got to go out, man the hell up, and win the Davidson game. I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time on the podcast talking about that. I just need you to go out. That's a business trip. Go do your job. And then Sunday, I hope they give a great showing. And I think if they play to their level, they can play with anybody in the country because I don't think there's a great team. I don't think there's an unstoppable team out there. This might be one of the better NCAA tournaments we've had in a while because there will be things that will be called upsets. People are going to say Michigan beating Colorado State is an upset. Michigan's really good. I mean, they're good. When they're playing at the top of their game, that's a good basketball team. And I'm not going to think it's an upset if they beat Colorado State. I think that's absurd. Um, us beating Duke, if we get past Davidson, I have to say that, right? Us beating Duke Sunday wouldn't be an upset to me. I think we can play with Duke. I think we have players who have not always played to the level of their capability. And a lot of teams can say that, by the way. So I'm hoping for an exciting tournament. I think I like both teams in the first round. I like both teams to play well enough to potentially get out of the weekend. I wouldn't be shocked if they got out of the weekend and there were 4, 5 teams in the 8. Or that'd be Sweet 16. Sorry, 5 teams in 16, and maybe 3 of them in 8. That wouldn't surprise me. I think the Big Ten is the best conference, and it's not a mirage. It's not a bunch of good teams beating each other up. The top end of that conference is good. Purdue, Wisconsin, Illinois, good basketball teams, and I think there's other schools. Michigan, Michigan State. There's 9 teams in, right? It's clearly a good league, top to bottom. So good luck to everybody until we meet. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I went a little long. Um, I certainly enjoyed doing it. I certainly enjoy what Brad Holmes is doing. If you took no message from this podcast, the message is that I am a Brad Holmes guy. I like everything the guy's done. I mean, you can go back and, like I said, talk about trades you didn't like. You can question some draft picks. I don't know how you do that. You can't question Panay Sewell. You can't question Amon Ra. I don't think you can question Ali McNeil or Levi Onwuzurike. I don't think you can. If you want to talk about Trinity Benson or Brashad Perriman, okay, that's the best you've got. I like what Brad Holmes is doing. I see the activity they've done so far as an indicator that there is a plan and that they are disciplined to that plan. That plan is a part of a long-term strategy, and I like it. I like it. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining. If you like the podcast, I appreciate that. Do me a favor and hit a like button, hit a review button, hit a rating, thumbs up. I'll take it all. I'll take any of it because I do it because I love it. I do it because I'm passionate about it. But of course, I hope that there are people out there, Lions fans, Tigers fans, Spartans, and Wolverines who enjoy it. So thank you. I just got a thumbs up. I asked for it and I got it. So um, we will be back soon. We're going to start getting a pace going of, you know, I would like to do once a week. Real life doesn't always allow that. So I'm going to commit to probably through the NFL draft, dropping something every 10 days or so. So you're going to see more activity and hopefully it's fun. Heavy Lions, obviously. The Pistons time will come. I think as the Tigers get going, that train's going to start moving. You'll see more of that. But again, we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Hope everybody has a great day and have a good one.